I think unfortunately, because so many people have been killed in this country, paying the ultimate price for Lebanon, that we have too many martyrs. So I don't really have an opinion on the word itself because I think it's been diluted over time. There are too many martyrs. I think it would have been much more rewarding had the number been small, but instead the number continues. And unfortunately, that word is used here, but I'd like to think of all these people as heroes more than martyrs. And I think this country is lacking heroes today. So if we can look back a bit on them and their careers and what they stood for, I think they were heroic. So I always prefer that word, hero. It's nothing I can accept. On the contrary, this is the unjust loss that we've all experienced in this country in different ways. In my case, it's my father. Of course, I think he paid a big price for trying to save this country from where it is today. I think a lot of these people foresaw a collapse and they saw the foundation eroding over time. And I think my father desperately tried to avoid where we are today. So I don't think his loss is for no reason. On the contrary, it shows just how bad things are. That somebody who I think was very decent and an honest man was killed for loving Lebanon. I think it adds to the harm. But I would never say that these people died for nothing. On the contrary, they died trying to save this country from collapsing. And unfortunately, that's where we are today. Where we're standing right now, next to his tomb, it's next to Wissam al-Hassan as well, also happens to be next to Rafiq Hariri. I don't think it's an accident that all these people were killed by the same group. It was never a doubt in my mind. I think that's something that we can take as fact. And I think that's the advantage of having that tribunal. Even though it's an emotional disappointment, even though it did not have, no one went to jail. No criminal is in prison today. We have one name and that person is free. But I think the answers are there. And thankfully, we can now say that this is a fact. It's not fiction. So I know why he was killed, and I know that he stood up to that group. And I know that his principles were basically, no one could persuade him to run away, and no one could persuade him to back down from what he thought was true, which is that Lebanon cannot survive with a group like Hezbollah. When I say Hezbollah, I don't mean the politics, I don't mean the social services, I don't mean the schools, I don't even mean the corruption. None of that. I'm talking about their weapons and the militia. And it is, I think, without a doubt, that his primary concern was Hezbollah's position in Lebanon and Hezbollah's position throughout the region as well. And it's not an accident. The last words that he shared were just about this issue, minutes before he was killed. I am convinced that there's no other group capable or even determined to target anyone that is intruding on their security concerns like Hezbollah. So it's not, for me, there's no doubt. I'm convinced, and I think a lot of us have reached that conclusion. The tribunal, the whole purpose of that tribunal, even though it was a disappointment on an emotional level, it delivered 1,000 pages. There's a verdict. There is a Hezbollah member accused. So there's no fiction here. It's not a belief system. It's not an opinion, it's fact. I don't think these people died in a way that's vague. They died because they were murdered. So they did not die for no reason. There are murderers that killed them. So that's an emphasis. It's not that Lebanon killed them or that they loved Lebanon too much and therefore they died. No. There is a militia that targeted individuals that were threatening their security apparatus in this country. So the fact that they were killed shows just how dangerous that group is. If there's anything to take from that, it's that these people left us enough information with them, enough knowledge to show that this is a structural problem for Lebanon. It's not just Hezbollah that has taken us where we are right now. They're one big component, but they're not the only component. That said, it is impossible to rebuild a country from war or from any kind of long-term instability with a group like Hezbollah operating the way it does. You simply cannot have a functioning state with a militia that determines war and peace, that has hijacked all sensitive sites in this country. At the end of the day, that's the whole point about having investigations, is that citizens don't have to speculate on their own. The fact that there's no investigation, the fact that there's nothing done, shows you just how dangerous this group is. That you cannot target them and you cannot even get facts against them just because of how strong they are right now. So anyone that criticizes Hezbollah today on media or in print or even in private, they're not killed. There are many Hezbollah critics in this country. Some of them are on your TV station, and they sometimes get very loud and very aggressive against Hezbollah. They will not get killed. People that tackle the security apparatus, I think, are the ones that are targeted. And I think my father, like many, and this includes the person that he's buried next to, Wissam al-Hassan, I think they were going after the proxy paralysis that comes with a militia like Hezbollah, and they were able to expose it. And that may be a red line for that group. And for better or worse, today you can scream and shout against that group, and it doesn't matter. That group doesn't change its behavior. And we're stuck at the moment with a collapse where that group may come out actually the only one standing. And Lebanon is dying. So I think that they did whatever they could to expose that group's position in the country and try to dissuade us against their propaganda. And I think that's the truth. The truth is there. There's no speculation around who killed him. There's no speculation around what's happening right now. So I believe these things firmly. You're asking, I think, a question that is valid in a country that has full control over its authority, over its judicial system, over its telecom network, over everything. That's not the Lebanon we live in. I think the question would be better asked, why didn't Hezbollah come to me and explain why they killed my father? I think that's a better question. And that's not the kind of question they will ask. If anything, they're doing exactly what any militia would do to survive. So that's where the answers are. It's not an independent body that can do what it wants. And it's not just an assassination. Half the city blew up. It's not just one investigation. It's not just one assassination. And the whole country is dying. And it's blowing up. And nothing is done about that either. You need to make security concerns in this country sovereign. They have to be independent from a proxy militia or from a neighboring regime or from anything that's not Lebanon. That's not the Lebanon we live in. We're still where we are right now as a result of these fundamental issues. You cannot have a country that works with a proxy militia or with a neighboring regime indirectly occupying it. These are fundamental concerns. As far as I know, my father was going straight in that direction in his opinions and in his writings and his TV interviews, even in his diplomacy. He was trying to untangle that web. That web killed him. I can't imagine myself being physically far away from what matters most to me, and that's my father. So, and I can't be too far away from where he's buried. I can't be too far away from the place that he cared about the most. And for better or worse, I think that may be the fundamental reason why I could leave tonight and I stick around. I also think that it's not Lebanon's fault that these things are happening. And I think those voices that are criticizing this group here are far more persuasive than outside. So I think it's an obligation for anyone that cares about this country and has the luxury of staying to make sure that if they're going to lose, they lose trying their best and they don't just cowardly fade off into the sunset. I refuse that to be my own ending, and I can't see myself anywhere else.